Thank you.
Thank you. I appreciate it. Thank you very much.
Yes, I heard about that today. I was talking to Howard this morning.
Hi, Chris. How are you?
Grace,
Hopefully
how are
we,
you? We have to amend that resolution.
resolved some of
We
the
have to amend that resolution.
issues.
Oh, we do.
That Linda sent.
Yes?
me.
Okay, good.
You, yeah. I'm
Howard
I'm
filled
getting
me in.
emails from Linda at this point. I figured this.
He keeps me updated.
Yeah.
We have to bring it here? Oh, really?
It's too formal of an appointment to risk.
Okay.
I mean, I would do that if it was like a contract for like goods, where the other side was fine. We're just gonna pay him right away.
Great.
But hi, how are you? Oh, how kind.
If you open the invitation, there's a QR code, you can scan and get the agenda.
Very fancy, I like it.
Okay, Scott, you'll give me the signal?
Okay, thank you.
Okay, we're broadcasting? Good evening, it's my privilege to call to order tonight's Township of Bridgewater Township Council meeting for today, which is Thursday, August 17th, 2023. To access this live stream, click the link below, which is https://www.youtube/@ all one word, Bridgewater, New Jersey, /streams, then click on the live stream labeled Bridgewater Council Meeting. In compliance with the Open Public Meetings Act of New Jersey, adequate notice of this meeting was provided January 10th, 2023, with written notice and electronic notice provided to the Courier News and the Breeze, posting on the website and the bulletin board in the municipal building, and filing with the township clerk. In attendance, roll call, please.
Councilman Cordilla? Councilman Nogales? Councilman Pedroso?
Here.
Councilman Ring?
Good evening here.
President Kirsch?
I'm here. If everyone would please join us in the Pledge of Allegiance, led by Councilman Norgalis. Of the United States of America, and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. Okay, minutes for approval. The July 20th regular session that was distributed, correct? All right, I did see that. Any edits have been provided back to you?
No.
No edits? Are there any edits from the dais? Okay, with no edits, I will take a motion to approve the July 20th session minutes.
I will move those minutes.
Second.
All in favor, please say aye or yes.
Aye.
Any opposed? Okay, those are approved. The closed session minutes, are those being distributed?
Yes.
Okay, those are being distributed on the dais, so please be sure to initial those. Township Council reports, I'll start on my left with Councilman Pedroso.
Good evening, everyone. Thank you for being at our meeting. I think our next meeting is in September, correct?
That's our next
Yeah.
scheduled meeting, correct?
The only thing I want to say is I want to wish everyone a great school year. To all the teachers, faculty, staff, and the students here at Bridgewater, and the parents. I hope they have a wonderful, joyful, and successful school year. That's all I have to say.
Hey, Councilman Norgalis, please.
Thank you. Earlier this week, I worked as a volunteer at the ballpark food concession in support of the Bridgewater Women's Club. A portion of the proceeds are going towards the 24 charities that the club supports. My specialty at the concession was making lemonade and popcorn. It was the day that the Yankee farm team played the Patriots, so it was a sold-out crowd of over 5,000 people. And it was night for fireworks also. Tomorrow I'll visit the Bridgewater Senior Center at the invitation of Jennifer Osterberg for their National Senior Citizens Recognition Day. I look forward to a fun time at their luau. Received an invitation from the Hindu Temple and Cultural Center to visit their temple in recognition of the landmark rededication of the temple, which occurs every 12 years. This is the third time that they will be doing it, and I look forward to visiting them during that week. Received a hand-delivered letter from a lady resident, Ann Zelinsky, on Ash Street, asking for traffic control information. Evidently, she's concerned about speeding. I'm simply going to pass the letter on to Mr. Pappas so he can give it to the police department. That is my report. Thank you.
Thank you. Council Vice President Ring.
All right, thank you. The master plan subcommittee has continued to meet, working to update the master plan, and probably will for a couple more months, but a lot of work to be done there and does continue to move forward. Planning board met earlier this week, had only one item on the agenda, and that was a variance for our street naming ordinance in the township, which was narrowly approved by one vote. The Zoning Board of Adjustment meeting next week on the 22nd will be a little bit different. It's actually a appeal of a previous ruling by the zoning officer as to what is known as the former Somerville lumber property, as to whether or not that was a primary retail establishment with accessory use of a warehouse or primary warehouse with an accessory of retail. It was ruled that it was a retail venue with accessory use of warehouse. The owners are appealing that before the zoning board. So that is just a hearing on what the use of the property has been. It is not an actual land use application. So it will be a little bit different, but that's the next zoning board meeting. Along with Councilman Norgalis, the rest of the council, I did also receive the invitation from the Hindu temple, who I know several members are here. I thank them for that. And then lastly, this Saturday, just as a reminder, is the 100th anniversary celebration of the Martinsville Volunteer Fire Department at Crim Park, which we spoke about our last regular meeting or 2 meetings ago. But that's my report. Thank you.
Thank you. I have a few brief items. First, this is the initial meeting that we are broadcasting via YouTube. It is also being recorded on that same platform, and the meetings will, moving forward, be available to be viewed both live and after the fact on YouTube. This is an outgrowth of the investment that we made in this room, upgrading our video, upgrading our audio. So now, hopefully, not only can people see us and hear us in the room, and of course that includes anybody that comes to the podium as well, but those recordings, those broadcasts are being made, and those recordings will be available, as I stated, moving ahead. We met in a special meeting last Wednesday to cover a unique circumstance related to a cellular facility, both at the Bridgewater Raritan Regional High School site as well as our own front yard, so to speak, over here. And I just wanted to reiterate, my particular thanks to all the parties that put that meeting together on short notice and allowed us to reach what was a very positive conclusion. In addition to our usual cast of characters, Wells Winiger stepped in, representing administration. Alex Fisher stepped in to provide his particular legal expertise in this area. Bill Burr, our engineer, was here, and of course Verizon. So, I think it was a good night overall with a very positive result. Wanted to acknowledge I was also at the 4-H fair. I pulled the short straw, agreeing to go on Thursday. And that's when it rained thoroughly, so the crowd was a little lighter, but certainly the overall event continues to be a Somerset County classic. In the intervening time since our last meeting, a lot of work has gone in with our short-term rental ordinance. We'll certainly be hearing that and having hopefully some interactive discussion as the meeting goes on. And finally, wanted to acknowledge the reason why Alan Cardilla is not on the dais tonight. He has a schedule conflict, and he had to attend to critical business associated with the Firemen's Relief Association, of which he is the president. I think we all know how critically important not only is his township service, but his fire service over many years is. So that's the reason he's not with us tonight, but he'll be back with us, I'm sure, for our next meeting. Those are my comments. So on behalf of the mayor, Mr. Pappas, any administration comments?
Thank you very much. The Township Council a number of months ago approved a resolution authorizing the purchase of equipment for Harry Alley Park and Alfred E. Brown Park. And I'm happy to report that those pieces of equipment are finally being installed. There's one small component for one of the parks that has lagged, but we do hope to schedule an official ribbon cutting, if you will, for those in the not-too-distant future. The township is embarking on a couple of master plan reviews. Again, this council, a number of months ago, authorized the contract with CME, which is an engineering firm which has been engaged to assist us in the review of the open space and recreation master plan. They have recently become involved in meeting with staff on a number of occasions. There will be a series of meetings that they will be holding with the respective committees, the Parks Board, the Rec Board, and the Open Space Committee, as they gather perspective and information, and prior to a very rigorous period of time where there will be public engagement, both in person as well as through an electronic platform. More to come as we have specific dates for these various activities. Additionally, the master plan, land use master plan, which a lot of us are interested in and familiar with, has also begun a process, as Councilman Ring pointed out. Mayor Mensch has launched a series of public information communications. Each Monday, our PIO, Suzanne Mader, has coined the term Master Plan Mondays, and every Monday there will be a communication issued from the township to help provide the public a perspective of what a master plan is, the various components of a master plan, and how it does affect our community. So that started this past Monday, will continue beginning this past Monday for a number of months. I know that there's a couple of items on the agenda dealing with short-term rentals. Mr. President, would you like me to report about some activities there? Would you like now, or would you like me to wait until that agenda item?
What I would like to do is, before we have the public hearing, I'd like to provide some commentary on my own, and perhaps if I've missed anything, you'll fill in, and then we can hear from the public. Okay,
Mr.
thanks.
President, if I may, I'm sorry, just to add on to, I apologize, we were talking about the master plan. Just so the public is aware, in addition to the master plan Mondays, there is a plan that as we get further along in the master plan, to hold some public in-person sessions for feedback on certain key areas. But I think we're several months away from that as well, but there is a plan for in-person public engagement as well before that's finalized. Sorry.
No apologies at all. You know, sometimes we get it all in one shot, and sometimes we go back back for cleanup.
I don't want to take something for granted.
No worries at all. Okay, moving to number 7, proclamation. Proud to acknowledge Indian Independence Day, which was earlier this week. So I'm going to go down to the podium. I get to the microphone. We are joined by leadership members of the Temple and Cultural Center. I don't know if you want to come up and hear it even closer from me. So this is a proclamation from the Office of the Mayor of Bridgewater, New Jersey. Whereas on August 15th, 1947, India gained its independence from the British Empire. Whereas Indian Independence Act of 1947 was approved by the British Parliament, which allowed the Constituent Assembly of India to write the Constitution of India, marking the beginning of India's independence after many years of British rule. Whereas the Indian independence movement was led by Mahatma Gandhi, Jawaharlal Nehru, and Sardar Patel, and through their message of nonviolence and civil disobedience, they inspired civil rights leaders from around the world. Whereas India's Independence Day is one of India's 3 national holidays celebrated by 1.3 billion people across India, with flag hoisting ceremonies, kite flying, and parades. Whereas diversity is one of Bridgewater's greatest strengths, Bridgewater is proud to be home to a large Indian American population who contribute greatly to the social, economic, and civic health of the township. Whereas the Township of Bridgewater joins with our Indian American community in celebrating India's independence, now therefore be it resolved, Matthew C. Mensch and the Bridgewater Township Council do hereby recognize that August 15th, 2023, earlier this week, was the 77th Indian Independence Day in our township of Bridgewater, and we call this to the attention of all of our residents. So, congratulations.
Thank you very much.
And
We're not allowed.
I'll deviate for the briefest of comment.
Briefest comment. So, first of all, thank you and good evening to all of you and Mr. President and council member. Thank you for all these honors. Actually, in India, we always used to call Basudevam Kutumbakam. That is, the entire world is our family, and we believe that one. But Bridgewater Township has been always generous to the Indian community, and we always thank you for it. And we like to support the same way as the time comes in. Thank you very much.
Thank you. It's our pleasure. Okay, so why don't we, if you guys can come down, we'll take a photo with the proclamation.
We don't have Suzanne here to direct us.
I will do my best as though he was providing the guidance we usually get, correct. Maybe we want to balance this out. Okay. Hold on. Place in my pocket. All right. 1, 2. Sure. Thank you for being here. Michael. Thank you for being here. Thank you for being here.
Thank you very much.
Okay, we have 2 presentations, and based on what's on the screens, the first one will be some Bridgewater Raritan Regional High School students speaking about their project, the research they've done, recommendations they have related to sleep deprivation and drowsy driving. So please join us at the podium. I'd recommend that before you get started, each of you let us know your name. And we want to make sure that you're properly acknowledged for that.
You may have to adjust the microphone.
Okay.
Well, she's in a good spot.
Yep.
Okay. So my name is Vithika.
I'm sorry, you do need to stay a little closer to the mic, though. Thank you.
My name is Vithika.
My name's Mira.
And my name's Simran.
And we're here to present to you about our cause called Prioritize Teen Sleep, which is about sleep deprivation and drowsy driving. How many hours of sleep, next slide. How many hours of sleep do you get every night? According to the Center for Disease Control and Prevention, about 1 in 3 adults in the United States reported getting not enough sleep or rest every day. This is about 33% of adults in the United States. Now consider that according to a poll ran by the National Sleep Foundation, 87% of teenagers get less than the recommended amount of sleep every night. That's pretty alarming, which is why we conducted a survey in our school asking about people's sleeping habits. More than half reported going to bed after 12 a.m. and waking up before 6 a.m. This is roughly about 4 to 5 hours of sleep every night, and I would consider that as not enough sleep, and it is not enough sleep because now, because you're sleep deprived, your attention levels are decreased, and this can have a negative impact on your everyday routine, especially driving. As new, inexperienced teen drivers, being sleep deprived and on the road puts teens and others on the road in danger of a fatal accident, which is why Prioritize Teen Sleep brings light to an important issue crucial for the safety of our community.
There are 3 phases of our initiative. First is creating awareness, providing resources, and making tangible change. We created this club to create and raise awareness about the underrepresented issue of teen sleep deprivation. Driving around in our community as a new driver, I can already tell that with the statistics that Vithika provided before, this is not enough sleep given to students, especially new drivers. Next slide. As I mentioned before, the first phase is creating awareness. An important idea is to get people to recognize that sleep deprivation is a very large issue with consequences in our community and to assess how we are affected by the issue. We want to highlight that sleep deprivation is dangerous just as the other forms of distracted driving, such as drinking, texting, in our community. Next slide.
The next phase in our project is providing resources. Next slide. So our main goals in this is we want to reach out to local branches of insurance companies in order to gain their support and gain access to the resources that they have. And another part of this phase is we want to work on having a presentation that is held at our local school with authorities such as people from Bridgewater, law enforcement, and physicians that could share their stories during this presentation so that we can get new experiences and new perspectives on this very alarming issue in order to warn teens about the severity of deprivation during sleep.
Next slide. Okay, and the third and last phase of our initiative is making tangible changes. So one long-term goal that we have includes pushing for curriculum changes so that drowsy driving is a more prominent subject in driver's ed classes. All three of us have taken driver's ed classes, and drowsy driving was not a topic that was very emphasized upon, and considering the statistics that I had shared before, it's a very important topic that needs to be talked about more. We would also like to create a sponsor page to show partnerships, our partnerships and our supporters on our website. And then we're also going to start a club in our school so we can engage more of our underclassmen community as all three of us graduate, and we can continue this on. And so that's what we had to present. We created flyers and pamphlets if you guys would like to look at it.
Sure, we'd definitely like to see that, and just for the benefit of the public, that you know may not have seen all the details in the presentation slides. There were a few mentions of the Bridgewater Police Department and partnership with them, as I've come to learn about this issue, there is definitely some things that I think our police department and/or our administration can do to help spread the word about a variety of issues that less experienced drivers may experience out on the roads. I have a 17-year-old driver and a 20-year-old driver, so it's certainly something that I'm aware of. That New Jersey can be a challenging place to drive under the best of circumstances, and then you add in some subpar conditions, and there can be risks. So. I will follow up, and the administration will follow up with the police chief, make sure that the township and the administration take the actions that we can. I thank you for bringing this to our attention, and also being a pathway to not only looking at this issue and its critical importance, but potentially some others that also impact our younger drivers. I think the safer our younger drivers can be, the better it is for them, the better it is for the full motoring public. Before I let you guys go, are there any questions from the dais?
I don't have a question, but
You want to just be close to a microphone.
Thank you. I'd like to thank you for taking the initiative in what I consider a very important thing. Now, you mentioned many young people go to bed at midnight to 6 a.m. Now, if we could just make that an 8-hour period instead of a 6-hour period, we can still call it midnight to 6 a.m., but if they get 8 hours sleep, maybe it'll help. But
Yeah,
that's
8 to
future
9
pro-
hours is the recommended amount of sleep according
know.
to the National Sleep Foundation, so that would be great.
And I don't think anybody up here gets that amount of sleep. So thank you very much.
You may have uncovered that the whole township of Bridgewater is sleep deprived. Any questions on this side or comments?
I just want to commend them for a great job, very well presentation, very thorough. Thank you for the information. and very useful. Thanks.
And we want to thank you so much for the opportunity of letting us present our cause.
Happy to have you, and I apologize because I'm trying to help one of your fans over here who was trying to videotape with 2 separate phones. But if you haven't, I would also encourage you guys. I think it's a great presentation. Have you presented this to the school board?
So,
We plan on presenting this to the school board at their next meeting on the 20th.
Okay, excellent. So, all right, thank you.
Okay, thank you. Thank you very much. Let's take a quick photo with you guys before you run away too far. Are we all in a good spot? Thank you.
thank you so
Thank
much.
you.
Thank you for your leadership.
Thank you so much.
Thank you, ladies.
Okay, and our second presentation tonight, the topic is 4-H, and we're going to be recognizing, Mr. Pappas, we're recognizing,
I think we'll have to do that in another meeting. I think the folks were unable to attend tonight.
okay, all right, we will hold that until our next meeting. Which brings us to number 9. Our meeting will be open to the public. Let me just provide an explanation for how we typically operate. We open to the public in 2 segments. One is what we're about to do, open to the public. There's an opportunity to speak to us on any topic. The other is when we have public hearings and action on ordinances. We will open to the public for discussion on the short-term rental, issue. In order to keep us focused, I would ask that if you have commentary or anything that you want to state on that topic, that you please wait until number 10. So what I will ask is at number 9, if there's anybody that wishes to address council on any matter other than short-term rentals, that'll hopefully allow us, to keep our meeting well organized. So I will entertain a motion to open to the public for comment.
Motion open public.
Is there a second?
Second.
All in favor?
Aye.
And any opposed? Okay, so the meeting is now open to the public. Members of the public wishing to address the council on any matter will be allowed 2 minutes to speak unless there are unusual circumstances. I ask if you would come forward, state your name, address for the record, and provide any comments that you have.
Good evening, Kathy Franco, 766 Weemac Road. Couple of things. First, I'd like to congratulate the high school students' presentation. I thought it was very well done, and I think it's a very important issue. Second is the 2-minute limit for comments from the public. I hope the council will revisit this rule, and I was wondering exactly where this rule is written in the codes, because I have never been able to find this 2-minute limit written anywhere, and I know that both the county and the Board of Education in our town offers 5-minute comment period. So I would hope that you would revisit that, especially depending upon the number of items on an agenda. My next issue is not on the agenda at all, but it has to do with the fact that this week, once again, the library at Bridgewater was closed due to inadequate HVAC system upgrades and replacement. I recall from a historical perspective, back in March of 2020, the council approved a measure to submit a grant application with the New Jersey Library Construction Bond Act. which was going to be the first of 2 phases of the HVAC system replacement at the library, and it was projected to cost $2,517,000. And this would have been a 50-50 match. Apparently, we did not receive the grant because I've never seen anything else come up in front of this town council. Nor did we capitalize the cost of the repairs and replacement, which we were aware of since March of 2020. According to the quote in the paper today, the township administrator stated that the township has been in communication with the leadership of the Somerset County Library System and has engaged a contractor to perform the necessary repairs to restore functionality to the building. We expect that work to begin soon, and more extensive HVAC repairs will be scoped and considered in the 2024 capital plan. I, as a resident of this township and as a user of the public library system, am disappointed that this sort of fell off, just fell out of sight. It's like we applied for a grant, apparently we didn't get it, and nothing was done after that. So I would hope that when we apply for grants in the future, that we keep our eye on the ball and that we pay attention to those things. And finally, item 12C, the resolution regarding the bargaining agreement with the Superior Officers Association. When I went to the draft resolution, it states that the contract will be attached. It's not attached in the agenda draft, and I understand that, but if adopted, I trust that the contract will be attached. Thank you very much for your time this evening.
Thank you for your commentary. Anybody wish to be heard during this portion of the meeting?
Seeing no one, motion to close public.
All in favor?
Aye.
Any opposed? Okay, we're closed at number 9. Mr. Pappas, any commentary about the HVAC at the library?
Yes, thank you. The township applied for a grant on 2 consecutive years. As was stated here, we were unsuccessful, and since then we have been determining the cost estimates that are necessary to then at some point come back to this council for funding. I am in regular contact with the director of the library. In fact, I spoke to him earlier today, and he was informed the detailed plan for the parts that have been ordered and the expectation that they will arrive shortly and repairs will be undertaken. So we have not ignored this. It is a large system, and as you know, as we discussed this last time regarding the HVAC system in this complex, it is they're complex systems, and finding the right vendor to assess and make appropriate repairs can be a challenge, but we are on top of it.
Thank you for that commentary. All right, we're going to turn to number 10. Before we open to the public, though, I think it's important to provide some, some information about where we are on this issue and where we anticipate we're going to go, and then get what we consider to be very valuable input from the public, because we want to make sure that any solution that we move forward to truly suits our community. So a couple of weeks ago at our meeting, I guess it was 2 weeks ago, we did introduce an ordinance to establish Chapter 152 of the Township Code of the Township of Bridgewater. And in the intervening time, there has been considerable work behind the scenes. You'll notice that at 11A, we anticipate introducing an alternate version. You may notice it's version 3. Yes, there has been an intervening version 2. What we're going to be discussing is a version 3. And what we will all experience tonight, which I think is a positive, is you'll see legislation made right up here as we go. There will be conversation and discussion about the various needs that we have, whether or not what is termed version 3 is sufficient and suitable. In the event that it is not, we will continue to iterate with a desire to get this issue right as relatively quickly as possible. But we did think as a group that it was important, even though we do not expect to go through with action at 10A with what I call version 1, we do not expect to go through with taking action on that. We do believe it is exceedingly valuable to still hold that hearing, hear from the public on the topic in general. So, Mr. Pappas, did I get all that right or close to complete?
Perfect.
Okay.
Mr. President?
Yes.
If I may, I'm sorry, I apologize. Just to add to that for the public's benefit, one of the things that we are required is we had the ordinance that was introduced at our prior meeting. If substantial changes are made to that ordinance, we are required by law to reintroduce that ordinance. So we can't just modify what was introduced 2 weeks ago. We have to start the process over again. So I just want you to understand, someone says, hey, why can't we just modify what we did 2 weeks ago? Legally, we're not allowed to, and Mr. Corsini, our township attorney, would interject at that point and tell us we can't. So we're trying to do this in a quick and appropriate manner, but we do have some constraints that we have to follow. So
Material changes do typically require starting from square one. So just so that I'm not being cryptic about what the differences are between version 3 and version 1, and then we will go to public comment. The items that were changed, at a high level, we have redefined a short-term rental as up to 28 days. It had previously been 30-31. The rationale there is to ensure that each month does meet that sufficient definition. There has also been what I call a carve-out placed in here for short-term rentals that are closely associated with a real estate transaction. There is also currently a carve-out for instances where an owner-occupied home or property it has, as example, a bedroom that is rented out. As part of that, there is now consideration of a registration with the township, an annual fee with the township, and inspection for, among other items, working smoke detector, working carbon monoxide detector in each sleeping room, and if there are cooking facilities, an appropriate fire extinguisher. So those are the items at a high level. Some of those still have some questions involved and attached. That's why we want to hear from the public. That's why we decided to move forward with this hearing, even though we do not anticipate the action on 10A as it's currently written. So with all that said, I will entertain. Yes, did I miss anything? Yes.
I just wanted to share a document with the council that staff have been meeting on this issue and the property that brought this to light on a regular basis, at least once a week. There have been actions taken, as I think I had reported previously, that seem to have addressed, at least on a short-term basis, some of the issues that have been reported to us. Several of us have actually been on site. I was there yesterday. I know our construction official was there today and tried to observe what may or may not be transpiring. But the property owner has visited the municipal building on a number of occasions. Appropriate staff members have been interacting with them, and we believe that we have gotten their attention very definitively and are expecting a thorough and appropriate resolution of this. It will take time. There will likely be a municipal court appearance that will likely occur, and we will continue to keep you posted.
Thank you. And just before I do entertain that motion, it is our sincere desire to make sure that we come up with an ordinance. An ordinance is basically a law of Bridgewater that prevents prevents the bad behaviors that brought us to consider this topic. That is basically a party house operating in the midst of a residential zone, while at the same time providing necessary flexibility for other, what I would call legitimate circumstances where an individual, may be in need of a short-term housing condition. So with all that said, I will entertain a motion at 10A to open to the public.
Second.
And all in favor, please say aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? Okay, so we are open to the public, and what I will ask is, if people who are interested in speaking can raise their hand, I'll recognize them. Please come to the podium. We have a sign-in sheet.
Yes.
Thank you. Just make sure that, we know who you are, for the purpose of our record and potentially for follow-up. Make sure that we adjust the microphone appropriately so that everyone in the room and where broadcasting can hear you. So we are open to the public, and I'm going to go with whoever raises their hand and I see first. So I am willing to hear questions about the topic of short-term rentals. That's that, and I think it's our desire.
The public hearing is on 10A. However, if you feel there is something that is not in 10A, i.e. 11A, you can certainly ask that question. I think it's general enough that there's some latitude for feedback from the public.
It is my desire to provide sufficient latitude without it being a circumstance where we get off topic. So anyone wishing to address the council, please raise your hand or come forward.
You want us to sign this, right?
Please do.
Okay.
And I guess just in addition to that, if you could let the audience and those who may be viewing online know your name and address.
Okay, I'm Carolyn Sullivan. I live at 19 Gateshead Drive, and I've been a resident of Bridgewater since 1987. I'm very concerned about what's going on with this, the short-term rentals. And I just want to say, first of all, thank you, because I realize that you're taking action and you're trying your darndest to create something that's going to make everybody happy. So I appreciate that. My concern is I've read both of these ordinances, and when I read them, specifically 11A, it looks like you're giving owner-occupied under, let's see here, Section 1, paragraph B2. It looks, and I could be wrong how I'm interpreting this, but this, to me, on my reading, gives an owner-occupied dwelling the right to rent out and do whatever they want. And I don't know if that's really what you were trying to do, to turn a single-family house into a multi-family house using short-term rentals, because that's the way this reads, because it specifically says, it says dwelling and not dwelling unit. By the township's definitions, a dwelling is any room in the house. A dwelling unit has to have a kitchen, a bathroom, etc.
So
that there is questioned.
Just so you're aware, as the council president mentioned, we're going to have some further discussion, and one of the items I have on my list highlighted to discuss, but is not part of any of these drafts, is clarifying that a rental is no more, while a rental can have more than one bedroom, that owner-occupied rentals are limited to one rental per unit, and at no time should an owner-occupied rental have more than one renter renting rooms. So it's intended to try to comply with some of the folks who say, hey, I can't live in my home, I want to rent a bedroom short-term, but it would prevent someone from renting 10 different rooms to 10 different people simultaneously, where now it's become a boarding house, as we've seen. Yeah. I don't know if that helps your question.
So this is one of those.
I don't see that in here.
Well, it's
Correct.
It's not.
It's not.
Okay, you're going to add that.
It's not.
We're going to
yet.
discuss it.
This is where everybody's going to see the legislation as it's getting made, because that is one of a handful of items that I believe there's going to be sufficient support to include. Mr. Ring has taken the lead on this particular area of making sure that our intention is in fact clear. What our intention is, just so that we are very clear, is it's come to our attention that there are instances, either for social purposes or for economic purposes or both, where there are individuals who may have a spare bedroom and want to rent that bedroom out for a business traveler or a leisure traveler for a handful of days, and it is our desire and intention, assuming that that is truly what's going to happen, to continue to permit that. But we need to be very careful in this definition so that we don't, in a backhanded way, take the teeth out of what we're doing here. So that concern is absolutely heard. It is absolutely known, and there are a few open questions and open issues after we hear from the public. That then becomes our time to react and make those adjustments. That is absolutely one of the ones that's on the table.
And I think the other thing I just want to remind you of, when something doesn't meet the zoning, a single-family residence, the tool you have is to have somebody apply for a variance. And under a variance, they could still get approval to do that. And that opens the door for you to send out all your inspectors and make sure everything is according to code.
With this proposed ordinance, though, you may have seen, someone that does a short-term rental is required to register with the town, and then it opens the door for any short-term rental to be inspected by the town as well.
That's a
So
good idea.
we're trying to balance. We've heard you, please understand,
Okay.
and
All
we're
right.
trying to balance that. And I'll tell you, it's in the last 2 weeks, Council President Kirsch took the first cut at this, and what was originally coined as version 2. Version 2 came out, and I made some further suggestions that I shared, and then Councilman Norgalis gave some additional comments over the last week. This has been a collective effort truly at its best of the council, trying to come up with something that it balances everyone here and addresses the needs of our community. Listen, if there's something we've missed, we want to hear it. But just so you're aware, I think that piece that I'm going to bring up later on regarding limiting it to one renter at a time will address, hopefully, your concern.
Okay, and we will also still be able to make comments on that?
Yes.
Yeah, well, just to clarify process, so this is the opportunity to make your feelings known on the topic. Once we close that, again, I'm expecting we will not be taking action on 10A, but we will then move to 11A, and we will deliberate, and whether we call this version 3.1 or 4.0 or whatever it is by this point, we will then deliberate. We will attempt tonight to fix this so that we can introduce this, and then in our next meeting, which I believe is in 3 weeks, September 7th, we will then have the public hearing for specific discussion of what will be the published and available ordinance known as whatever version number we're up
We
to.
will still have the opportunity to comment on
Correct.
that.
In 3 weeks, correct. Assuming that we introduce tonight, yes, in 3 weeks. Or if we don't introduce tonight, we have open public comment in 3 weeks, or if we don't introduce tonight, but we introduce in 3 weeks, then 2 weeks after that, there will always be a public hearing before any ordinance is adopted.
If I may, Council President, just so you understand, though, we want to hear public comment now so that when we introduce, hopefully, the next version tonight, it becomes the final product. Because if we introduce version 4, version 5, whatever we're calling it tonight, and we have a public hearing in 3 weeks, and someone says, oh, what about X? And we make it an additional material change, we have to then reintroduce and wait till another meeting before we can vote on it. Because by law, we have to introduce a proposed ordinance and then wait one additional meeting and hold a public hearing before, and then after we vote on it, it still takes 20 days before it becomes law. So we'd welcome the feedback tonight so that if there's something that we need to think about, we capture it tonight. At least that's my view.
Or the other thing I will offer is, and I have spoken to members of the public, even if we don't get it, exactly right tonight, this is a priority of this council, this mayor and this council, to get this right. I know there was a previous comment about making people happy. I don't know if we're looking for happiness. We're looking for the right solution for our community. Hopefully there will be happiness, but I think our goal is to make sure that we have the right solution. But thank you for those comments, and I know Mr. Ring will be the one that represents that one in particular.
Great, thank you.
Thank you. Anyone else wish to address the council tonight on this topic? Could both sign in and provide your name and address so everyone can hear it.
So I haven't had an opportunity to look at the ordinance because I'm here with the girls, but...
I'm sorry, just your name so that we all know.
Oh, Ashish Joshi, 1067 Buxton Road. And I haven't looked at the ordinance, but if any of the ordinances have anything to do with basement dwellings, with kitchenettes or anything like that, because sometimes basements may appear with kitchenettes and other things, so if you don't have that, you might want to add that into your ordinance as well, just as a suggestion.
So the concern is that
Someone's putting an illegal bedroom in their basement.
Illegal bedroom / throw in a small stove, a refrigerator, and it becomes a dwelling, apartment dwelling illegally. So it has happened. So
If they registered with the township, again, they'd be subject to an inspection.
They may not.
And current zoning or current ordinances do not allow that anyway.
Right.
So, I think.
illegal things happen, so I'm not sure. if
Correct.
there's
So,
a way
but
of
putting
doing
it in a second ordinance doesn't prevent someone from
Right.
doing it.
But do we have anything like that where it says, because basements create hazards of all kinds, so just making a suggestion, that's all.
I know that there are codes that need to be adhered to, and people do conduct renovations to their homes without getting permits. When those are discovered, then the township will then engage with them and either cite them, give them an opportunity to rectify it. But as Councilman Ring said, unless we're made aware of it, it's virtually impossible to monitor it.
But we could enforce it, so, okay.
Yeah, and I think ultimately the registration process will bring a practice that may be happening in the shadows into the light of day, which is ultimately, I think, a good thing from a public safety standpoint, from an integrity standpoint, and potentially, for us to know, properly know, what is built within various homes.
And so I think the answer to your question is we have existing mechanisms for enforcing that already.
All right, yep.
Thank you for your comment. Does anyone else wish to address council? Sir. No, I'll get over here. I'll get over here next, I promise.
Sorry, the address is long.
Not a problem.
My name is Neil Curry. I live in the house that I was born and raised in 1385 Washington Valley Road. I think there's a lot of things that you mentioned that probably are in my notes, and I'm going to have to try to sort out what is useful and what isn't to you all. But referring, first of all, to this report, it's a research paper from the National League of Cities about short-term rental regulations. They say that it's really a good thing to get started early, so congratulations for getting started early. They also mentioned that it's good before even starting to write an ordinance, that 3 things should happen. You should gather data, you should engage in a diverse group of interested parties in the discussion, and identify measurable, realistic, and balanced policy goals. That's from the report. It's very useful, I think. as a guideline. I think there's a little, as you have already mentioned, there's more work to be done. And some of us will have opinions that others will differ from, and I think that's good too. I'd like to start with just to mention the fact that I am in favor of regulating short-term rentals, but I'm not sure that this is what we've seen, what I saw in the first draft is the way to go. If hotels are licensed, why not license short-term rentals? I'm not sure what the difference might be between registration and licensing, but it would make sense to me that a similar approach be taken. And why not take it for rentals as well? Okay. Let me give a little bit of perspective on short-term rentals. You mentioned there are two issues that have been hopefully resolved in the short term. In addition to those two issues, there are hundreds, in Bridgewater, there are hundreds of short-term rentals every year. So it's less than 1% of the total number of stays. The solution should match the degree of the problem or the level of the problem. So let me give some idea that short-term, those hundreds of stays are generally professional families or individuals who come to meet with loved ones, they come to do business, they come for tourism, they attend weddings, and they participate in workshops and other reasons. Canceling them would be harmful to the local restaurants, fast food chains, malls, supermarkets, car rentals, gas stations, taxi, convenience stores, entertainment venues, and others. So the impact, I believe that if properly regulated, the growth of short-term rentals in residential areas is beneficial and it should be welcomed. A couple points about the public disturbances. Bridgewater police are the best in the state. Building a reputation for timely, tough, and effective action by authorities is one of the best ways to deter future problems. There's a paragraph in the first rendition that talks about problems which are often frequently associated with short-term rentals result in overcrowding and other things. I'm not sure what those problems are. It should be defined in some way. But do those same problems occur in non-short-term rentals? In other words, residents or outsiders may have the same problems causing the results that the short-term rental, those two short-term rentals cause. So I think it's probably, you're probably able to find valuable information in the police data or their insights that can show how short-term rentals are different. The problems in short-term rentals are different from the problems in other situations and how they can be managed. There are a few unintended consequences that I'd like to point out, that the rental period in the second version, 28 days, would not cause a problem that the 31-day minimum causes. The 31-day minimum would make it very difficult for a landlord to evict. It complicates the eviction process, and it's costly. Other wording that's in the first version, I'm not sure, that it sounds like it might not be in the words bed and breakfast. I found out that there is no way that Bridgewater does not authorize bed and breakfast, so they're not regulated at all. And
Well, it's not that they're not regulated, they're not permitted, and that is on our list of items to fix in the proposal.
Okay. The bed and breakfast is very complex because New Jersey defines it in 3 different levels. So it should be removed. The penalties, I believe that the maximum penalty for petty disturbances in Bridgewater is jail time and $500. That makes $2,000 per day quite excessive. Health and safety, even, you mentioned this, even though existing buildings are already regulated, it would be beneficial to define minimal health and safety standards for short-term rentals and the process for the licensing or the registration. Finally, I think that it would be wise to grandfather in rental contracts that are established prior to approval.
And that is in what is now version 3. The let me just see if I can find it. The provisions of this chapter shall not apply retroactively to any rental arrangement made prior to its adoption.
Well, thank you for letting me speak more than...
Mr. Council President, may I
Yes.
ask a question of Mr. Curry? Mr. Curry, in your statement, you stated that there are hundreds of rentals in Bridgewater, and you say less than 1% of sales. Do you have a source for that fact? Is that just a gut feeling you have, or is that something that you found?
Well, it's based on the one or two people that I know do Airbnb rentals. In addition to Airbnb, there's private individuals who rent without advertising. There are people that rent through Expedia, Booking.com, HomeAway. So there are so many platforms out there, it's difficult for me to say that that's a fact.
Okay.
It's intuition, and it's intuition based on the fact that I have an Airbnb, I operate it, I've had 30 stays this year, and mine's small. Mine's just 2 rooms. So I'm estimating that there are hundreds.
You're estimating that there's hundreds of rental stays. So not the number of homes renting, but the number of stays over the course of the year is hundreds.
Your problem is I think you should focus on the number of stays that you have. Because one of the things that was mentioned in this process was that the traffic of transients in residential areas needs to be stopped. That's number of stays. That's
What's your average length of stay?
number of places? No, it's number of stays.
What's your average length of stay?
Mine?
Yes.
3 to 4 nights.
Okay.
And to be very honest with you, if you were to implement a minimum of 3 to 4 nights, you would eliminate the interest of party houses. You don't need 28 nights. 3 to 4 would do it.
Okay.
That's an opinion.
And you live in the house that you rent, correct?
Oh, yeah.
You're owner occupied.
I've lived there. I was born there.
And just for your peace of mind, and again, this will come out in our conversation, 11A as compared to 10A puts in the clarification non-owner occupied properties as being our focus.
Mm-hmm.
So thank you for your comment. Does anyone else wish to be heard? I think I promised over here. This gentleman here at the end.
There was a lady in green who had her hand up a couple times too.
We'll get to everybody, and I'll be as fair as possible in the order.
Thank you, I appreciate it. I want to first thank you for addressing the short-term rental situation. I think we've come a long way from when we originally had issues and brought them to your attention.
Name first before you go too much further.
Yes, Anthony Wagar, Gateshead Drive. I understand this is somewhat of a work in progress. I know it's version 3.
I'm sorry, what number do you live at?
14.
Thank you.
You're welcome. I understand it's version 3. And I understand the exceptions in there. The majority of them make sense for different, stakeholders in it. There's only one exception that I personally have an issue with, that you're soliciting input, so I'll share it with you. Again, I'm not a lawyer, so I understand how you make one change and how it impacts other areas of the ordinance, so I'm very mindful of that. And you guys are in a much better position than I am to know what makes sense and what's enforceable, and et cetera. So when I look at this and I start reading that particular exception, which is number 2 in that 11A provision, and it states or reads as it's currently proposed, and again, I understand this is part of the process, so I'm sharing my uneducated feedback with you. It says rental of units within owner-occupied dwellings shall not be considered a short-term rental under this chapter. So the 2 items that I have, or the suggestions that I have, and you can tell me if it makes sense or not, is it says units, plural, and I thought in a single-family residential zone, there's no multi-family dwellings allowed. So when I see the plural of units with the S, it concerns me. The other thing that concerns me with this, in almost all the other exceptions that are listed here, they include a reference to otherwise lawful occupancy of a dwelling unit. This particular provision does not include otherwise lawful occupancy of a dwelling unit. So my suggestion, or what I'd like to recommend, is that you include that reference, otherwise lawful occupancy of a dwelling unit, and change units, plural, to unit, singular. The reason, I'm sorry, just...
No, I'm just trying to follow. Number 2.
Number 2.
So we have rental of a unit with owner-occupied, and then where was the other change?
Well, it says rental of units.
Yes, so you're I
I'm
like your
suggesting-
suggestion.
Okay, thank you. I'm suggesting rental of unit, however the...
Rental of a unit within
Rental of a unit, blah, blah, and then there should be a reference to otherwise lawful occupancy of a dwelling unit, because when I look up the definition of dwelling unit, it's important and it's significant, in that the town's, Bridgewater's definition has requirements. So it's things like no less than 2 means is provided from the outside or through a common hall, that there's separate cooking, sleeping, and sanitary facilities are provided within the dwelling for the exclusive use of the occupants. The situation that we're seeing and that we have firsthand knowledge of is that you have a multifamily situation. It's a for-profit, unregulated business at the moment, and it shouldn't be allowed in a single-family residential zone. I looked up the definition of hotel and also rooming house. This is Bridgewater's definition, a rooming house. A dwelling unit containing rooms for rent and providing lodging and or boarding for individuals. That's 100% what is happening. I've got the receipts for it. Multiple rooms were available. I know there's been some notifications to the homeowner, and that I believe has since stopped. My concern is that if this exception is not, slightly modified, I think it'll just go back to the way it was, even though we all understand that the intent is not to have multifamily rental situations in a single-family residence. I know it's version 3. I just wanted to mention that. Where was the other piece here? Well, I think that's the bulk of it. I mean, I just would simply ask that we include unit versus units, and also include the reference to otherwise lawful occupancy of a dwelling unit, not just a unit. I think dwelling unit is a defined term, as I mentioned, and that would help clarify things quite a bit as far as its current use. So I wanted to be brief because I know you've heard a lot about this, and I did want to thank you.
And I think that goes under the umbrella of some of the items that were raised, particularly by Mr. Ring earlier today. So we'll definitely be, in our deliberation, I'm taking careful notes. I know we all are. We're going to make sure that we get this right.
It's very much appreciated. And again, it's everything. I looked at 10A and I looked at 11A, and it made a lot of sense. And I understand the exceptions for mother-daughter scenarios and people that are, building a house and they need someplace to stay for long term. So I get it, and those are fine. It's just that one provision.
Your feedback is exactly what I said earlier when we want to get this so that we don't have to reintroduce again. So
Yeah,
I appreciate it.
Okay, thank you.
Okay? I know there were a couple other people on this side of the room, please.
Good evening. My name's Nanette Mantell. I live at 13 Gateshead Drive.
And before you run away too far, just make sure that you've signed the page as well.
Oh, sure.
So that we have that for the consistent record.
Thank you. And thank you for having this open meeting on this topic. It is, as you can tell from the people who have spoken, near and dear to our hearts. I have lived in Bridgewater since 1980. I am an attorney since 1978. So I have read the ordinance. 11A, I have to say, is the one I have read most recently. And I just want to reiterate what some of my neighbors have said, because I too believe that the exception which you have questioned is in fact quite ambiguous, needs to be clarified, because although you are well-intentioned and we appreciate that intention, we think that this exception really opens up the problem.
We need to limit it to one.
Yeah, okay. So I think at least I'm on that same page. I appreciate your time. I won't take more time tonight.
Thank you for your comments. Anyone else wish to be heard on the aisle here?
Thank you.
Any, name and address and any affiliation as well.
Good evening. My name is Fran Katz. The address of my rentals are on Tunison Lane. 9 Tunison Lane is one of them. I'm the owner of New Jersey Short-Term Rentals, a local corporate housing company, and I've been in the corporate housing business for 15 years, since 2008. Before that, I was a supervisor and a systems engineer at AT&T for 15 years, and I want to thank you for letting me speak with you today. We have serviced over 3,000 guests, including corporate executives, international business associates, professionals relocating to the area, homeowners who have had fires, floods, and home renovations, or who are in between house closings. So I wanted to explain about the typical profile of a short-term renter and the importance of safe, comfortable, furnished rentals to them and how they service the community. Our average length of stay is about 4 months, but we've had many clients stay much longer. Prolonged Pharmaceuticals was a tenant with us for 8 years. We support many companies in the area to house their employees who come to New Jersey for short-term training and job assignments. Many of them are repeat clients. Alacrity has booked with us 10 times since 2013. ATSC has booked with us 14 times. Some bring in trainees for 2 weeks at a time. I could go on and list other companies in the area, but they're large companies, small companies. They all have needs for short-term housing in the area. Many professionals who reside in short-term rentals go on to buy homes in the area. We refer our clients to local realtors, and we've helped realtors salvage their deals by providing comfortable stays for guests in between house closings. We've worked with Alexis Wilson-Girand from Reichert and Bindu Yalamanchi from Caldwell Banker right here in Bridgewater. Some families need larger rentals than just an apartment or a hotel. They need a single-family home. So I'm hoping that the ordinance is going to address someone renting a whole home, not talking about a multifamily, but in a residential neighborhood. There is that need for large homes, especially with so many people working from home remotely. We've also housed construction employees who bring professionals to work on buildings and infrastructure in the area. For example, RPC Contractors had a foreman stay with us for 19 months to help build Miller's Ale House, and he hired local contractors for the job, so they do help local economy. I know that Airbnbs have tainted short-term rentals in many ways, thinking that people are coming in to be rowdy or hold events and cause disruption in the neighborhood. In the 15 years I've been in this business, we have rarely had to call the police on our rentals. I can't even remember the last time. Our clients are corporate clients, families who don't have parties or bring excessive noise to the rentals. In my experience, partygoers are typically looking for very short stays, like a night or two. We have a 2-week minimum, and we don't have any issues with parties. Companies like mine write over $1 million worth of checks per year to local apartment complexes and homeowners. In the past 10 years, our company has paid over $8 million in rent to apartment complexes and homeowners, and payments are never missed. Clients feel safer and more comfortable in a furnished apartment. Here's an example. When we found, this is from Vanessa, who gave us a 5-star rating on Google. When we found out we were relocating from Washington, D.C. to New Jersey, we were in a panic. We had not found a house yet, and with a 2-year-old and a dog, we were horrified at the thought of staying in a hotel for over 2 months. I'm so happy I found NJSTR. As soon as we walked into the apartment, we felt at home. The apartment was comfortable and cozy and family-oriented. In closing, I would like to say that I hope everyone today can walk away knowing that most short-term renters are not here for parties. They're professionals, they're families who support the local community, and our corporate families and short-term renters should be able to have a safe and comfortable alternative to stay here in Bridgewater. I will ask that I guess it will now be a 28-day minimum stay, but the 30-day minimum stay be reviewed. As Mr. Collins mentioned, that the typical party goer is only really looking for a 1 or 2 night stay in my experience. And we've done a 2-week minimum. I'm sure a 4-night minimum also has eliminated some of that parties, but I don't think a 28-day minimum requirement is needed.
For clarity, your company has a 14-day minimum?
Yes.
That's a policy. That's not just an experience. That's the policy.
We will not rent to someone less than 14 days. That is a policy of our company.
Why is that?
To eliminate people who are coming in for these reasons, okay? In the past, and I've been in here for 15 years, we have had situations where we tried that. And we're not looking to bring people in who are going to be disruptive in neighborhoods. That's not what the service we're trying to provide. We're trying to provide service to people who need it. A 2-week rental, like I said, we've had employers that come and bring people in for training for 2 weeks, and they want to make it a nicer experience for their employees than staying in a hotel. Hotels don't have washer dryers. They don't have full kitchens. To stay for even 2 weeks is not as comfortable as staying in a hotel in many cases.
Just so we're clear, though, what we are proposing here is not a ban on rentals of less than 28 days. What we are proposing is a requirement for registration to ensure some basic life safety for people renting. What this ordinance is going to require, and there'll be a little bit of discussion as to the types, but what we're proposing is a smoke detector and CO detector in each bedroom and a fire extinguisher in the kitchen. To register and have the town come out and inspect that is a $200 annual fee, okay? And we're putting restrictions, obviously, as you heard, on the number of rental units, if you will, or the number of simultaneous rentals within the same dwelling. So we're not banning rentals under 28 days. We're taking steps to ensure that your guests that stay in a rental are safe and secure with proper life safety measures. So if anything, the fact that Bridgewater is going to require these short-term rentals to have smoke detectors and CO detectors and fire extinguishers should increase your business, because we're trying to keep people safe in controlling short-term rentals. Unlike some towns who actually cap the number of short-term rentals that exist in it, we're not touching any of that. We're asking for a simple registration database with some life safety measures to protect those in the building.
That seems reasonable. I will say that the rentals I have in apartment complexes are already inspected by the state for
Correct,
those
and that's an
fire
apartment
inspections.
complex. And one of the challenges we have in the town, and one of the things we as a governing body has wrestled with, and Councilman Norgalis can tell you from some of he and my conversations offline, different buildings are built at different times, and the building codes are different. So someone can have a house today that does not have to have interconnected fire extinguishers, but as soon as that house is sold, depending upon what year it was built, now all of a sudden so someone's renting, there's inconsistency in the life safety depending upon what the building code was at the time that home was built. So we're trying to come up with a baseline to keep people safe.
Yeah, and I think a yearly inspection is reasonable. What I would not like to see is something where it has to be inspected between rentals.
We're not proposing that.
But actually, I think there's a nuance here that we need to I think there's a nuance here that we need to cover, because I have a different interpretation. So either, we need to potentially change the language, or, make sure that we are all doing the same thing. I believe that what we are trying to do, and what is written here, subject to some of these changes that we're talking about, is that if you are under 28 days, you do need to be owner occupied.
Correct.
So these instances where, a corporate apartment, let's call it, is being rented out, would our ordinance, as it's currently stated, that would not be permissible at fewer than 28 days.
Correct.
So in order to operate, if we don't change this, in order to operate in Bridgewater, your business model would need to say, I can only accommodate people who are here 28 days or more.
Right, so my corporate clients who have come and been repeat clients for me, sending a trainee here for 2 weeks, would not be allowed to stay in Bridgewater, and I would have to house them in another town. Even if they would like to come to Bridgewater and eat in Bridgewater and shop in Bridgewater and live here and potentially move here, they wouldn't be able to come in here for that. So I would ask that that 28 days either not also apply to rentals that are not owner occupied, or that 28 days be dropped to something a little bit more like 14 days, which in my 15 years of experience, I can say that we don't have issues with people coming in for parties. My places are not frat houses by any means, and I don't ever have police coming to my rentals. If I had party houses, they would be here all the time.
So let me ask two related questions. So you've been operating for many years, apparently successfully. So congratulations and thank you, for the contributions that you make to Bridgewater. How did you come to that 14 number? Was that the sweet spot between people who are just here too long to be in a hotel, clearly aren't looking to party, but need something that gives them a sense of home? I mean, why was it 14? Why was it not 10? Why was it not 21? Was there any experience that caused you to choose 14 as your number?
For me, in my business, it was just a lot of churn. It's a lot of work to turn over apartment rental, as far as cleaning it, getting it prepared, getting back-to-back clients to book them. So from my business model, I knew I couldn't do a very short-term stay, like a few days. But there's many clients, 30 days or 28 days is just too long for them. So we sort of came in the middle when I formed this policy that 14 days would accommodate those clients who need something a little bit less. Maybe they only have 2 weeks between their closing and they don't want to bring their family of 5 and their dog to the hotel. They'd like to stay in a furnished apartment. And for me, that eliminated the party goers. We don't have any issues, and it was just the right number for my company. But, in response to Mr. Collins, who had said that he's been doing it for 3 and 4 nights, I believe that's probably accurate, that he's not getting the party goers either. Just for my company, a 4-night rental is just too much churn for me to have that much turnover. That's why I came up with the 14 days, but it definitely solves the problem. But I would not be opposed to something a little bit less if other homeowners and landlords have experienced that a 10-day minimum would work for them.
Okay, I forgot my second question, but I don't know if anyone else on, no, it's all right. I don't know if anyone else on the dais has any questions?
Mr. President, can I just ask the lady a question? Since you must engage in this in more than just Bridgewater Township, do you What's your experience with other municipalities that may charge a fee, and what's the registration structure, if any?
I haven't had any specific ordinances for short-term rentals. There are townships that have general requirements for rentals, which are registering, the yearly registration like you spoke about, but not specifically just geared towards short-term rentals. That's just for anyone who wants to.
Yeah, that was the topic that slipped my mind. Yeah.
What's the fee that you see charged elsewhere?
$150 in Piscataway for a yearly rental. I can't remember the other ones off the top of my head.
So it feels like we may have some homework on our hands after we solve this to potentially review, Mr. Pappas, how we are handling rentals altogether, and again, through the lens of trying to ensure that the public safety, make sure that nothing is slipping through the cracks. So I don't think we want to provide, we don't want to over-regulate a situation, but I think we also don't want to create circumstances where there can be threats to the public safety. Okay, thank you for that comment. We'll definitely take it under consideration.
Thank you so much.
Okay. Anyone else wish to be heard? I think there were at least a couple over in this area.
Sign in, I guess, first.
Please. It's so that you don't forget to, and then we don't have you.
Phil Piro. I live at number 1 Gateshead Drive, and I hear everything that has transpired over the course of the last hour. But I wanted to make a point on the negative side of why I think short-term rentals should be regulated or, in my opinion, dismissed, primarily because I bought a home in a single-family zoned residence neighborhood. I didn't buy a home near a hotel, and some of the negative things that maybe you guys have not heard of because it doesn't happen in your neighborhood. You have transient people coming and going at 3 and 4 o'clock in the morning. It's definitely concern for safety issues, for burglary, theft. There's people in the neighborhood that are not commonly there. I have 2 small children that play on the front lawn, my driveway. Cars flying up and down the street at 40 and 50 miles an hour creates a hazard. There's frequent police activity. We live in a cul-de-sac. It's not a throughway. There's cops on the street often. There's things being stored in driveways for long periods of time. There's trucks that have car carriers that park on the street overnight for multiple nights in a row. I'm sympathetic to the fact that there's people traveling, but that's what hotels are for. If people have to stay a little bit of a longer term, that's called a long-term stay in a hotel. I think we have the vehicles to do that in Bridgewater, but I don't think enabling single-family homes throughout the town is going to be the solution here. I just wanted to make a point here to say I know that you guys have done, I've understood in the last hour, a lot to start enforcing what's kind of going on in our neighborhood. But what my question would be is the lady who spoke before, she vets her people. She looks into what they're coming for, how long they're staying, what is their occupation. In an owner-occupied home, they're looking for income. It's a quick 3 or 4 night stay or 1 night stay. It's a different animal. You're dealing with different people. So I just ask you guys to consider all that when you're looking at these regulations. I think 28 days is fair. Like I said, if you have to stay a shorter term than that, that's why we have hotels. I guess that's all I have. I just don't know if there's anything more that we were doing other than implementing fines. Is there any kind of regulatory thing that's happening beyond just issuing fines and hoping that the behavior and illegal activities stop?
Well, what we're talking about here is having a registration fee that would include inspection to ensure public safety, the areas that we've mentioned and still need to be potentially clarified, smoke alarm, carbon monoxide, existence of a fire extinguisher. I believe that's where we are. And then if there are any violations, of this ordinance, it currently calls for penalties between $100 and $2,000. So that there would be a level of flexibility.
There's another piece to that that is important. in that the ordinance also says that if there's a violation, it's automatically classified as a public nuisance and is hereby further found and declared to be offensive to public health, safety, and welfare. So that public health, safety, welfare, the nuisance piece gives us a greater opportunity for enforcement and taking action in a more timely manner, as I understand it. And Mr. Corsini might be able to comment further.
I have no comment.
Okay.
Okay, thank you. You're welcome. Anyone else wish to be heard? I think there was at least one or two in this general area.
Hello, my name's Tom. I am Tom Lee. I'm actually a resident of Bedminster, but we have rental properties in Bridgewater. Am I permitted to speak here?
Absolutely. It's open to the public.
Okay.
Just again, as long as we've captured your name and address on the page as well.
So similar to the woman that spoke previously, we have a small rental, short-term rental business. We've been doing it since 2015 with a couple siblings. We specialize in short-term rentals. Our guests come to Bridgewater from all over the country, and some even come from other parts of the world. There are many reasons that require stays of less than 30 or 28 days. Some of these include visiting family, attending weddings, staying nearby when loved ones are in hospital, going through various life events, work projects, corporate housing, internships, staying while their regular home is being under construction or under repair, et cetera, et cetera. One of the things that our guests are often looking for is a secure, private environment, either for themselves or for their families. A home away from home for a few days or a couple of weeks. All of our properties are pet-friendly. When our guests stay in our apartments, they bring business to the town as they eat, shop, and do business here. We've had minimal incidents of any problematic guests, and yet the vast majority are very quiet and respectful of their neighbors. Our policy has always specified that there are no parties or events to be held in these properties, and we also limit the number of guests. We post these restrictions online and in our compendiums, and we post quiet hours on placards by the front entrance. The adherence to these policies have been excellent. If this ordinance is put into place, we will effectively lose our business and the many years of hard work we've put into it. We'll have to cancel numerous of existing reservations, potentially forcing our guests to look for accommodations in other towns. In addition, we still have to continue paying on some of our leases. We urge you to please reconsider this situation. Obviously, we would like for this ordinance to be omitted or rejected, but at a minimum, possibly a clause could be considered that allows a fair and reasonable amount of time to honor the reservations that have already been made and also provide us with the time needed to allow our current leases to...
That's in there, sir.
Is it? Okay.
That is in there. And just so that I'm clear, because I know we asked one of the previous speakers, do you have minimum policies?
Yeah, it's a lot less than the 14. It's actually just 2. 2-night minimum.
So you own multiple dwellings throughout various areas that you rent out as a business then?
So our business model consists of both. We have some owner-occupied that are not in Bridgewater, but the 4 units that we do have in Bridgewater are non-owner-occupied.
So you own those, though?
No, they're not owner-occupied. The ones in Bridgewater are not.
Who owns them?
So similar to the lady that was speaking here before, they're units on Tunison Avenue in Bridgewater. Bridgewater Oaks is the...
So are they owned by other individuals? Are they owned by a corporation? Who owns them?
Owned by a corporation.
Okay.
And I'm sorry, your role is to match a buyer and a seller?
It's pretty, yeah, property management pretty much. It's... I'm not sure about that.
No,
You have 4 units?
they're not affordable.
You have 4 units?
Yes.
So you're matching buyers and sellers subject to rules that you implement?
So the rules, so we're matching buyers and sellers, and we're using a third party like Airbnb or VRBO.
But you made reference that each location has a sheet of some kind?
Yeah, so we have a booklet in each apartment. They're called compendiums. We have all of the guidelines in there, any restrictions, but also helpful information like Wi-Fi information, local businesses, shops, restaurants, et cetera.
Okay.
Contact information for,
Are these 4 units owned by the same entity?
yes.
And you advertise on the internet? I've seen the ads.
Yeah, currently, but I think that's one of the things that I think I read in one of the previous versions that was going to be restricted, correct?
Well, I mean, we are talking about coming to as much of a common ground as possible so that we, cut down candidly on the party house situation.
Right.
For lack of a better phrase.
Sure, yeah, no. Totally agree with that. I mean, that's not what we want either. I mean, it's a private community. It's very quiet. Posted online, the restrictions as far as no parties, no events, maximum number of people. We put a placard by the front entrance, as I mentioned. They have quiet hours, strict quiet hours in that community, starting at 10 p.m. And it's our compendium as well. So we post it online and in our binder inside the apartment.
How do you police that?
Yeah, so difficult to police, but we've had minimal complaints. I think since 2015, and the 8 years or so that we've been doing it, it's probably been less than that. For the Bridgewater apartments, probably 5 years or so, 4 or 5 years. We've had maybe 2 incidents where neighbors complained, and the neighbors have our personal phone number, have my personal phone number, so if there is a complaint, they can contact me directly.
All right, thank you for your comment. If I could get a raise of hands, how many more people want to speak? I see 1, 2, 3. All right, let's keep this moving. Let's try to keep moving as quickly as we can, and hopefully cover if there's any new ground that we haven't heard before. So I'll go to the lady with her hand raised now.
My name is Helen Falone. I live at 22 Gateshead Drive. I have been a resident of Bridgewater since 1984. I am not a great public speaker. This is very difficult for me.
We'll get through it.
If you don't mind, I would like to read.
Sure.
Let me start out by saying...
Ma'am, can you just lower the microphone a little bit so that we're broadcasting?
Let me start out by saying this new ordinance allowing rental apartments within a single-family dwelling is unprecedented in this state. Many towns are outlawing Airbnb-type rentals altogether, as there is no control as to the number of families, number of people, or safety and sanitary conditions in these unregulated for-profit rentals. I would challenge this council to identify one other town in the state of New Jersey encouraging daily rentals of apartments or rooms to any number of persons residing in the same single-family dwelling at the same time, and allowing and encouraging and advertising of these multifamily rentals on the internet, as this proposed ordinance does simply, relying on residency and ownership. Frankly, under Bridgewater's ordinances, it's called a hotel, and Bridgewater's own definition of a hotel is a building designed for occupancy as a temporary residence of one or more persons who are lodged with or without meals, and where access to the room is through an interior corridor. Or it's a rooming house. Bridgewater's own definition of a rooming house is a dwelling unit containing rooms for rent and providing lodging and or boarding for individuals. Presently, these are not allowed in single-family dwelling zones, and this would now be allowed, as would soliciting and advertising of same, as long as one identifies the home as his or her personal residence. If someone is 5% owner and resides, is that allowed? If the home is owned by an LLC or company and the person residing at the dwelling as house manager represents a small ownership, is that allowed? They are owners. People claim all the time Bridgewater's home as their permanent residence, but live in Florida 5 months a year. State and nationwide, the towns are outlawing unregulated apartments or rooms, many being unsafe and illegal. Airbnb is losing legal battles in New Jersey and nationwide, and the idea of having overnight apartment rentals, most unregulated, simply is not being allowed. Most importantly, the council has already indicated the town has no enforcement or oversight for matters like this. Who is checking ownership? And frankly, ownership of properties is simply not relevant when it comes to uses under ordinances. If the use of a single-family dwelling allows multiple families to reside, the zone and allowed uses become a multi-family use and zone regardless of residency. The foundation of uses and zoning in Bridgewater is under attack. With regard to ordinance number 1, the 30-day rental ordinance, the difference between 28 and 30 days is insignificant and in most cases unlikely. As to some of the other concerns brought up 2 weeks ago, a mother-daughter occupancy is presently allowed, being the same family and household. A seller that closes on their home and stays for a week or two remains one family living in the home, and the unique situation is a holdover occupancy and stays for a week or two. A seller that closes on their home and stays for a week or two remains one family living in the home, and the unique situation is a holdover occupancy that's contractually agreed upon when signing the sales contract. Besides, the fine, if ever levied, is $100. I moved into a single-family home in Bridgewater. I've lived in 2 homes in Bridgewater. If I wanted to live next to a motel, I would have moved on Route 22.
Thank you.
I'm finished.
All right, I think we had 2 others that wish to be heard. Were there 2 others that wish to be heard? This gentleman?
Hi, good evening. My name is Michael Conrad Jr. I reside at 20 Gateshead Drive. I live directly across, well, first and foremost, 48 years here in Bridgewater, born and raised. I live directly across from the Airbnb on Gateshead. My biggest concerns are
What was the door number?
20.
20, thank you.
My biggest concerns are the screening process. I can't begin to explain the issues that we've had. I live with my wife and my 2 daughters. The only screening process that is in place right now is a credit card. I beg of you to have a owner-occupied 1-bedroom, 28 or 30-day minimum. I think that's middle ground. I think the owner-occupied with a 4-bedroom house with 3 bedrooms that are rented to 2 individuals puts it a total of 8 residents in a home. Parking, sewer, debris. Separately, the investors that would flock to Bridgewater. I know right now a 3-bedroom rental is approximately $3,000. We'd essentially be doubling the rental income. of those properties, and essentially be turning the majority of these rentals into boarding houses, in my opinion. I've sat across, and watched this happen firsthand. We purchased a residential zone, and I just, simply asked that we maintain a residential zone. And I don't think that 8 or 10 people living in a home parking on the street and on the side streets is really what we want in Bridgewater, or to really encourage that, to bring investors in, to really have that spread through the town. That's pretty much it.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Does anyone else wish to speak? I think there's one more.
Good evening. I'm Cynthia Freund, and I'm at 1367 Coriel Drive. I just wanted to share my experience with Airbnb, and I know it's bed and breakfast, but there's never been any breakfast involved in my experience. And it's always been one room in our house, and the tenants are not tenants, they're guests. That term is used because they're guests in your home. They're guests in my home. They use one bedroom and they use one bathroom. And sometimes they stay a long time, maybe 30 days. Sometimes they just stay Monday through Friday, and then they leave. And most of the time they've been scientists at many of the pharma companies in our area. That's really been the lion's share of the guests. Occasionally they've been maybe procurement managers or supply chain managers. Really, mostly they're from these pharma companies. None of them have been partiers. None of them have been anyone that have been a negative impact on our community ever. Never, never, never. And as one of the other speakers mentioned, they've been customers for restaurants. They've been, no one has ever been a negative impact to our community, ever, ever, ever. It's never been a bad experience. And mostly it's just been a lovely experience. They've been very intelligent folks. They've been, I don't know, it's never been bad. And it's certainly helped us to pay our mortgage, to pay our taxes. Some of these guests have gone on to rent apartments in town. Some of them were just in maybe to make a presentation, and then they've gone back to their homes. And I don't know what the heck happened on Gateshead, and I'm sorry that that happened to those folks. That's never been my experience. It sounds like maybe it was horrible, but that has never happened to me. And I'm a realtor, and I've seen horrible things in what were otherwise legal apartments when I've gone in to show them to possible renters. So I don't think that those horrible things only happen in Airbnbs. They also happen in perfectly legal apartments. So I don't think that making short-term rentals is going to take those things out of our town, unfortunately. And I think that, making it a 28-day is going to take those things out of our town either. But I can also tell you that in my Airbnb experience, there has always been those fire safety things. I'm really big on those things as a realtor. Thank you.
Thank you. Is there anyone else wishing? I think I see one more. Is there anyone after her? All right, if you could please come forward.
Okay, Lori Kaleli, number 24 Gateshead Drive. So I guess the last time we were here, I think one of the council members indicated that residents should do whatever they want in their own property. And so I don't think that's correct, and it shouldn't be just open-ended, you know? I can't open up a restaurant. I can't, in my backyard, I can't have a little construction company with 6 dumpsters on my property here, overnight parking, you know? And yes, you know, there's methodologies if people want to change what they currently have, right? We're all on Gateshead Drive, single-family homes. So if somebody wants to change something, they want to rent it out. There's variances, right? We have variances, and if someone has a carriage home on their property and looking to fix it up, wanting to put, you know, bedroom cooking facilities, they go to the town, they get a variance. Just like when we have to put something on our property, we go and we have to put in for a permit. This isn't happening right now. And this residential area, again, is the most beautiful block in Bridgewater. We bought this home specifically to be quiet, nice neighborhood. And now this transient stuff that's been happening is very disturbing to everyone, okay? You know, we definitely need, you know, what are you trying to achieve on this? You don't want to have apartment rentals and, you know, apartment rentals throughout Bridgewater, right? Because you want everything to become apartments, then you're going to have investors just coming to, investors to come in, just invest in these properties and then rent them out. This is not what we want to start. And I get all the other property people who have businesses and so on, but this, you know, I don't know what you need to do here, but you need to do something because you can't have all these rentals. And rentals and transients here. You know, we must have variances for these applications. And there's nothing in this ordinance to say how you're really going to enforce it. Look how long it took to finally come to a head to start enforcing violations that I could see as I passed with my car, okay? We have to do something. It's very, very important. And I understand the right zoning, you have to have the right zoning. If this is a single-family home, how can you have multiple families coming to rent there? I understand you're looking to, you know, one family at a time. You have nothing to say. You could have 30 people renting there at one. You could have 30 people there. You didn't have anything in here. What about peoples with pools? They can go and rent out the pools, rent out their garages, rent out everything. You have nothing in this ordinance for any of this stuff. It's got to be covered somehow in some way because, you know, it's just opening it up for people to do whatever they want. And I understand we own our properties, but we own the obligation to the community to keep it the community that Bridgewater has been for so many years. I'm in this Bridgewater area for 30 years, and it's a beautiful community. But you're going to start if you keep letting rentals, especially on these single-family homes. Our taxes are very, very high. What about if they have multiple people in these units? You're going to have multiple people living there. What about the sewer tax? If you have multiple families living there, all these people living there, sewer's going to go up? The tax is going to be higher than my taxes when I got 3 people living in a house? You got to consider that. We can't rent out just to rent out to make money. This is not that type of neighborhood. And it's really going to be a burden on the police, emergency vehicles. If you have emergency services that we have here, you have to have some type of restrictions. And I'm sorry, this is not a business. This is a residential area. So I really like this ordinance to really cover every detail that you can. You don't want to have to go back to the drawing board every time a violation comes into play, right? We want to get this right. Like Councilman President said, you got to get it right. Come up with everything you could think of, because if not, it's going to become a business, and then it's not going to be a residential neighborhood anymore. And I think that's all I got to say.
Thank you. Is there anyone else? All right, seeing none, I'll entertain a motion to close to the public.
Close public input.
Is there a second?
I'll second it.
All right, now, it appears as if there is not going to be sufficient...
Don't we need to vote on the motion?
I'm sorry, all in favor?
Aye.
Any opposed?
With that, I will make a motion to table 10A.
Is there a second?
I'll second the motion.
All right, and if we could have a roll call vote to table, what that means is no further action on 10A.
Councilman Nogales?
Yes.
Councilman Pedroso?
Yes.
Councilman Ring?
Yes.
President Kirsch?
Yes. All right, so now we're going to move to 11A. Now, when we came here tonight, it was my wholehearted intention to adjudicate this matter tonight and to introduce an alternate resolution, taking into account, not only the commentary before the meeting, but the commentary during the meeting. I guess I have doubt that we can accomplish that, nor that this is that it would be inefficient. That we could do it efficiently. The reason I state that is there are some wording changes that definitely need to be made. For instance, the removal of bed and breakfasts in section 1, paragraph B, sub paragraph 1, because bed and breakfasts are not permitted in the township at this time. There's been substantial commentary in section 2 about unit instead of units. There's been considerable commentary about other changes. I know Council Vice President Ring has some concern. There's a question about interconnected UL certified smoke detectors or simply smoke detectors. I know that there's an overall concern about the proper amount of time. I think everybody in this room wants to avoid rooming house situations. So I think that we definitely want to make sure that we're acting in that regard. So from where I stand, it feels like there is probably more homework and more action that needs to be taken than can occur on this dais at this time, but I'd like everyone's input before we make that decision.
So, Mr. Council President, I know we've circulated a couple different versions, and as I said, I came here tonight with some additional notes made. I'm happy to share with my colleagues on the dais a copy of some of the notes that I've made. Highlighted were 2 items for us to discuss tonight, and that one was when a rental may have more than one. I was proposing in addition to item 2, which is highlighted on page 2, and that is when a rental may have more than one bedroom, owner-occupied rentals are limited to 1 rental unit per home. At no time shall an owner-occupied rental have more than 1 renter renting rooms. And then I know we were going to have some discussion on the interconnected component of the fire alarms. I've also captured tonight, based upon some of the comments made, and I'd be happy to go through the comments I've captured and the notes I've made. I'm happy to go through these and make a motion to introduce this, because I think we've captured a lot here. I know we've heard a lot. I am of the opinion we need to address some of our challenges. I also think we need to, Mr. Curry spoke a little bit about his situation. I think we have residents who are owner-occupied and are trying to supplement income or stay here. I'm not as swayed by a home that's owned by a business and is being rented by a short-term rental company. And I would actually suggest we need to refer those to zoning. And someone's renting a home for profit. It's owned by a corporation in a residential zone, and it's being rented as a for-profit business. That to me is a business within a residential zone, and I think we need to do something about that. But if it's all right with you, I'll go through the changes.
With Councilman Ring, I actually think that is not the best with respect. I think that the changes should be accumulated through Council President Kirsch at the conclusion of this meeting, and they should be referenced to my office. There is no chance this ordinance will be introduced tonight. There's just way too much.
I think that we can have some brief additional discussion just so that we know where consensus is, so that the drafting of the next round can be as effective as possible. But I fear that there would not be complete clarity on exactly what we're introducing.
We have never, in my time or Bill Savo's time here, made this many changes to an ordinance on the dais. A resolution, we've made a couple, maybe 1 or 2 changes, but I think that the volume here and the nature
Then
of them.
let's go through it and agree to it now.
All right, so at a high level, I think that it's worth considering making sure that we can have consensus, so that, I'm still willing to.
So here's besides the document that I handed out, Mark, the changes I've captured on page 1 under B1, deletion of, changing hotels and motels and deleting bed and breakfasts.
Okay, is there any objection there? I don't think there should be.
Okay.
Okay.
Also, there under B, let me just, sorry, trying to page down here the notes I captured. I came up with number 2 to be rental of a unit within an owner-occupied dwelling, further than short-term rental or in the principal residential dwelling unit, were the changes I captured on 2. And honestly, other than the pieces marked, that's the changes I've captured.
Okay.
We can.
Now, there was also commentary about the amount of time, 28 days. There is certainly the possibility that is the right number. There's also the possibility it's not the right number. I guess seeking consensus of council, is 28 the right number? Does a different number need to be considered?
The 28 days is just, to me, the 28 days is the right number. We're not banning rentals of less than 28 days. We're regulating rentals of less than 28 days. I'm perfectly content with the 28 days. If we were going to have a discussion about a minimum length of stay, I would certainly welcome that, but I don't think there's a need to change the 28 days. That's my opinion.
For clarification, how do you not see it as a ban? I mean, there are exceptions to the ban, I give you that, but it's a ban of under 28 days with exceptions. I just want to understand how you don't see it as a ban.
We're not banning rentals. We're saying you can have rentals, you need to register them, you need to provide certain life safety components, and it needs to be owner occupied, so we don't have a business operating in a residential zone.
So it's banned unless it's owner occupied and it has the fire safety equipment.
Correct.
Is there consensus there?
I'm okay with 28 days. Thank you, I'm sorry. I'm okay with 28 days. On the third page, by the way, in the first version we had under the A paragraph, we had added police in, and in this next version it disappeared again. I'd like to ensure that the police department is listed as one of the potentially enforcing agencies. We list building code officials, fire officials, et cetera, but I'd like to add the police back in on that one, and I'm okay with it.
I don't know where that deletion came from, so.
Okay.
I have a question. The proposed ordinance states in the very beginning, paragraph A, at the very end of that sentence, it states, of any dwelling unit, and dwelling unit is capitalized as a name, as a certain specific name within an ordinance, and it's as defined herein. I've been trying to, maybe you guys can help me out, find where that dwelling unit is defined. I didn't catch it.
Can you state the location again?
Well, very beginning, paragraph A, section 152-1, paragraph A, very last, at the very end of that first paragraph, before B, it states, allowing or failing to discontinue the use or occupancy of any dwelling unit, capitalized, as defined herein, right? But I'm not catching a definition for dwelling unit. Typically, in an ordinance,
It's in here, Philippe.
it is, where is it?
It's in the last version of it. Just give me a second. It's in the text. I think it's in section A.
Sure, it must be somewhere, I just didn't see it.
Well,
It's here because I saw it, but.
we can make sure it's there.
We'll make sure that's there.
It's here because.
Yeah, I mean, without a definition, it would make the ordinance
And it's in there.
fall on its face.
All right, one other thing that or maybe not one more, maybe there could be a few more than one more. I'd like to see what the consensus is on interconnected UL certified smoke detectors as compared to just the more broad smoke detector. I guess the concern brought by Councilman Norgalis is that a smoke alarm in a room is outstanding to alert to a smoke or a fire condition in that room. But depending upon the layout of the house, there could be considerable portions of the house that don't hear that or aren't aware of the problem. Have I captured that correctly?
Let me address it, Mr. President. As a firefighter for 37 years, I've been in a lot of homes that have had fires, some in single rooms, some in multiple rooms. I consider the interconnection of fire smoke detectors, which is required right now in any modern construction. I don't know if some of the homes that would be considered for the subject here are of such an age that there may be some that are so old and haven't been changed over the years that they don't require any smoke detectors at all. That's a travesty. But in any case, I feel very strongly that fire smoke alarms should be interconnected so that people in other bedrooms, because if we were just talking about a one-bedroom house, that would be not a problem as far as I'm concerned. But whenever we talk about multiple bedrooms, I feel from a fire safety standpoint, they should be interconnected, especially if it's a rental situation. If you're living with somebody in another room that you have no idea about their background, I think you'd feel a little bit better knowing you have that level of protection. So I feel very strongly about that.
So further buttressing my prior comments that it's essentially impossible to reconcile this tonight, the definition of owner-occupied is in one of the versions that was circulated earlier today or yesterday at section B2. It is not the version that I believe you have in your hands right now, Council President. I have no idea where some of these are coming from. It is defined, Councilman Pedroso, as, for the purposes of this chapter, owner occupied, in quotes, shall be defined as the owner as an individual or as a couple of the property who reside in the short-term rental property or in the principal residential unit with which the short-term rental property is associated on the same lot and identifies same as his or her principal residence as that term is defined in this chapter.
That is in.
Yeah, I was looking at Council President Kirsch's. I checked.
That is in here.
Yeah, it was the version you sent me, Councilman Ring. I do not believe that version is in Council President Kirsch's version, which shows the.
All right.
Well, we're not all working even off the same.
The version I handed out tonight, it is in there.
Yeah, but that's not your version right there.
All right,
Wait, time out. Time out.
We need to take guidance from our attorney who said a few minutes ago, I quote, I have never seen this many changes being adjudicated on the dais.
Well,
and as much as I would like to see this move forward tonight, I really feel that we have to step back to try to make sure we do a little bit better job, because we seem a little disorganized up here right now.
Council President Ring did circulate, I believe, the last version of this, but I do not believe it is the version that everyone has.
Wait a minute. I have the version that you're referring to. I see owner occupied defined.
2B.
However, wait.
Okay.
The term was not owner occupied. The term was dwelling unit. The term dwelling unit is capitalized. The D and the U are capitalized, meaning that it's a noun within the ordinance, and it specifically states as defined herein. And the term dwelling unit, I do not see a definition for
I actually do believe, Councilman Pedroso, that is probably defined elsewhere in your land use ordinance.
Huh?
I do believe that term probably is also defined elsewhere in your land use ordinance.
It says as defined herein.
Herein would be here in your code.
Okay, just make sure it was
So
passed
let me
legal
suggest
review.
this, and I am as disappointed as anyone in this room. I had thought we were going to be able to adjudicate this tonight. I don't believe there's a reasonable way to adjudicate this tonight, but I do believe we've made substantial progress. So I believe that our takeaways are, and our next meeting is in 3 weeks, the takeaways are for continued conversation amongst us, consideration of all of our notes, careful work with our counsel, so that there can be one and only one draft that is not only circulated among us, but that will be made available to the public. Again, this is my belief on our best approach, that we cannot take action on what is called 11A tonight. So I believe what will be in order is a motion to table with an understanding and an expectation that whatever we call it in 3 weeks when we meet, we will have it hammered out in more than sufficient time, not only for ourselves, but for any member of the public. Is that a reasonable approach, gentlemen?
With regret, I move to table this document.
I'll second. Roll call to table.
Councilman Nogales?
Yes.
Councilman Pedroso?
Sure.
Councilman Ring?
No.
President Kirsch?
Yes. All right, so what that means is we have, first of all, thank you for everyone's participation and very valuable contributions. We will take this all under consideration, and we will be introducing this ordinance with all the various changes when we meet in 3 weeks. All right, moving to resolutions. 11A, this is the award of contract to Northern
12.
Red. Excuse me?
You said 11A.
I'm sorry, 12A, excuse me. Resolutions, award of contract to Northern Red Training, 1000 Woodbridge Center, Woodbridge, New Jersey, in the amount of $22,125 for proprietary emergency response active shooter situation training for 59 officers to be held at Camp Cromwell, to be funded from the police budget under the subset professional development. Mr. Pappas, any commentary, or is that self-explanatory?
Self-explanatory.
So moved.
Is there a second? A roll call, 12A, please.
Councilman Nogales?
Yes.
Councilman Pedroso?
Yes.
Councilman Ring?
Yes.
President Kirsch?
Yes. 12B, authorizing Township of Bridgewater to execute a shared cost services 3-year agreement with the County of Somerset for Community Police Alliance Coordinator. Somerset County will be the lead agency. Bridgewater will reimburse Somerset County for $31,250 in year 1, $43,750 in year 2, and $56,250 in year 3. Mr. Pappas?
The township was identified as a pilot for this county program a couple of years ago, and the county has requested some financial support. With that, there will be I would say, a more detailed reporting to Chief Mitzak, and administration requests support for this resolution.
Any discussion?
Sure.
I know this has been a principal activity of Mayor, to his credit. The fact that the expense is ramping up rather dramatically from $31,000 to $56,000. I understand the total cost of the program per the background documentation was $120,000. What's happening here that our percentage is going up so dramatically? Are we getting more of his time, or?
I think I'm not sure I can fully respond to that at this time. I think the informal relationship that we've had with the county since this was established has been very positive. I think the financial arrangement will perhaps clarify some of the time that is put forth to interact with our police department on behalf of the police department with individuals that reside here or are in Bridgewater by this professional that the county employs. And I believe that the expectation is, as we, again, this is a more formal relationship that is going to clarify what the realistic expectations are, and we believe that it would be advantageous to establish a more formal relationship. I do believe that within the agreement that there is the ability to end this sooner than the 3 years if it is deemed appropriate from either party. And so I think we believe strongly that this has been a successful endeavor, that this would be an enhancement, and certainly regularly report to the council about its continued success.
I'll move 12B, but I would need help in further understanding the financial.
I'm happy to second it. Just to clarify, isn't our existing program, wasn't that introduced as a pilot that the county wanted to explore, and we were chosen as the pilot? I guess I view this as now we're formalizing it and ensuring, at least for the next 3 years, that it continues after having been part of a pilot for the last 3.
Correct.
Do we currently have a contract with the county for the pilot?
I don't believe we do. I think it's,
Yeah, so there's pluses and minuses, but I'll second it.
What does the CPAC do?
You've got a whole report.
Chief Mitzek is here. Perhaps he might come forward and maybe describe for the council the benefits that we've experienced.
Your question is, what does the Community Police Alliance coordinator do?
Yeah, just sum it up.
Sum it up? Okay. Basically, he responds to any type of psychiatric issues we have. He follows up on a lot of calls for service that we don't. We go, we solve the problem temporarily, and then Mr. Stackhouse follows up behind us. And if it's a day or a month, he continually follows up to assist the people with help. I can tell you, we have a school in town, the alternative school down in Findern, where we used to have a lot of calls for service there. Mr. Stackhouse frequently goes down to that school and interacts with the students, and calls for service have gone down dramatically. Am I doing injustice to you? So yeah, again, psychiatric emergencies, even if Mr. Stackhouse is not in the building, he has a phone. He also has a radio where he hears the calls. He answers at all times of the day and night and responds out to any call we need service with.
Is that Mr. Stackhouse?
Yes.
Behind you? Okay. Hi, how are you? Thanks for being here. Does Mr. Stackhouse is paid for by the county, right? He's a county employee. And does the services extend to other communities besides Bridgewater?
No.
No, so it's only Bridgewater?
Right.
Yes?
Mr. Stackhouse is assigned to Bridgewater, yes.
I see. Okay. All right. Great. You happy with, you think it's providing a valuable service?
Absolutely.
Supplement the police
And,
department?
Absolutely, and I think I would like to expand on that, because it's not fair to him to constantly be on call and handle the calls and the follow-ups. If you've seen a report of how many calls he has handles and follows up on, it's too much for one person to handle.
Okay. Thanks for your feedback, Chief. Appreciate it.
Yes, sir.
Any further discussion?
No, thank you.
So did I have the motion on this?
You have a motion and a second.
Okay, roll call. Roll call, please.
Councilman Nogales?
Yes.
Councilman Pedroso?
Yes.
Councilman Ring?
Yes.
President Kirsch?
Yes. 12C, this is authorizing the Township of Bridgewater to enter into a collective bargaining agreement with the Bridgewater Township Superior Officers Association for the period through December 31, 2025. Discussion, Mr. Pappas.
The administration puts forth this agreement that would be between the township and the Superior Officers Association, would be a 3-year term, retroactive to January 1st of this year through the end of '25.
And could you go through some of the key components, please?
There is a provision, of course, for increase in compensation. There is, as you know, there have been, every municipality and private sector has experienced increased costs for health care, and the superior officers in this instance are agreeing to increase their cost share, similar to the other non-union employees in the municipality. Previous to that, it had been frozen at a date from a couple of years ago, and that certainly is benefit to the township financially. There are some other provisions, clothing allowances, there is a provision for holiday pay, and there are, let's see, I guess those are the major highlights that I'd point out.
Any discussion on the dais?
So moved.
I'll second it. I just want to add, I just want to say that, first of all, thank you, Mr. Pappas, and the administration team for working hard on this. I've read this, gone through this agreement, and read quite a bit of it before this meeting, and I do think that this is certainly a fair resolution to all sides. I think it's fair to the Bridgewater taxpayer in the sense that the numbers are appropriate there, and I think it's certainly fair for our men and women in our law department, certainly in our police department, who work hard to keep our community safe. I think the number is fair for both sides. I think it's a good resolution, and the congratulations on the success of this agreement.
Any other conversation?
I have one comment. Earlier in the day, I had asked Mr. Pappas for an economic impact of the changes, and he provided a documentation. I'll summarize very quickly. The 2023 impact is $131,500, etc. It would have been higher, some $153,000, except that the contract includes coverage for health benefits, which benefits the township. So with that in mind, I will support this. I'm ready to vote.
Okay, I have a motion, a second, a roll call, please.
Councilman Nogales?
Yes.
Councilman Pedrosa?
Yes.
Councilman Ring?
Yes.
President Kirsch?
Yes. All right, we've reached the end of our agenda with the exception of our closed item. If I'm not mistaken, we have one item for closed session, contract negotiation. Is that correct?
Yes.
Okay, if I can have this is the resolution to go into closed session.
Mr. President?
Yes.
Just say that it's unlikely, but it's possible the council may come back into open session for action, but that's...
Action is...
The council's determining...
All right, action is possible, yes. Okay, so be it resolved by the Bridgewater Township Council that this body will hold a closed meeting to discuss contract negotiation. When and if matters discussed become public record, this will be made known to the public at that time. The public is excluded from said meeting, and further notice thereof is dispensed with, all in accordance with Sections 8 and 4A of the Open Public Meetings Act.
Pete, can you get the door on the way out? Thank you.
Motion, please.
So moved. Second.
And a roll call to go into closed session.
Councilman Nogales?
Yes.
Councilman Pedrosa? Yes. Councilman Ring?
Yes.
President Kirsch?
Yes. All right, Scott, you'll confirm when we're no longer broadcasting?
Thank you, sir.
Our,
He's the only you've ever been on.
what's that?
I don't think we can put you back on. Oh, we put you back. Go on.
Yeah. All right, I need a motion to go back, having concluded our closed session, I need a motion to go back into open session.
So, second.
All right, that's a yay and nay, or I need a roll call?
Yay.
Yay.
Yay. All in favor?
Yay.
All right, and any opposed? Okay, having reached the end of our agenda with no additional items, I'll entertain a motion to adjourn.
Motion to adjourn.
Second.
All in
Yay.
favor? Thank you.
See you later.